Ben, you chose a topic, spiritual bypassing, and I would like to start by asking you, what do you mean by that?
Spiritual bypassing for me is when we are using spiritual practices, spiritual concepts to bypass or sidestep our real inner work, not confronting our inner baggage. And I've had a lot of experience doing that.
Do tell, give us one example.
For much of my life, we've talked about this in our episodes. I had experienced a sense of inadequacy, that there's something wrong with me and that I need to fix myself. And so it started off with that mindset of there's something wrong with me and I need to fix myself. And that inherently is false. And I realized that later. But with that mindset, I started to learn spiritual practices. I thought that that was a solution to fix this thing that was wrong with me. And it started off with Vipassana, which we've talked about before. And it moved on to doing work like Joe Dispenza's work, which is phenomenal work as well. But the way I was using it, in retrospect, I realized it was serving me and it wasn't. For example, when I was going through that period when I was doing the Joe Dispenza meditations, I was reaching these really elevated states of love and of joy. And what I noticed though is that anytime I would feel this part of me, that part of that sense of inadequacy or this fear inside of me or that guilt, I would quickly jump into, okay, I got to get to that elevated state, or let me go meditate and let me get to that elevated state. I was trying to push away this dark aspect of myself that I didn't understand. I didn't know what it was. I didn't want to know what it was. I just knew it was scary to me. It was like the boogie monster under the bed when you're a kid. I wanted to avoid it at all costs, and I wanted to reach that elevated state. And it evolved too. It evolved where even when I started to confront my quote unquote shadows, that as well became a form of really not confronting it directly and sidestepping through emotionalism and whatnot. So I'll let you ask the questions. There's so much I can talk about on this topic.
I want to make a comment before I ask another question because I've seen this for the longest time and I've seen it in you before this uh, enlightenment arrived in you, that I see people get very attached to a system or a teacher. And that is one of the obstacles that I see. And frankly, they do it with me. A lot of my students guruize me. And I really have fundamental problem with that because then the destination gets lost. And as they call it, the pointer becomes the point, and that becomes an obstacle. Did you experience something like that? Did you feel that you were attached? Because I watched you a few years ago. Your attachment to the latest discovery, spiritual discovery, was stronger than what I would, of course, my standards, call healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I did experience that, and I wanna mention this. I don't think spiritual bypassing, as we call it, is bad. It's a coping mechanism. As we have developed coping mechanisms, all of us, various kinds, with varying various degrees of how good or bad it is for us. But it is a coping mechanism, and I think we all do it to some extent. What I noticed I was doing is I would pick a teacher guru. Joe Dispenza was one of them at one point. Sadhguru was another one at another point. And I would commit myself fully to that. And I would go all in into doing what they taught. I I would say I would become attached to it because I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my ability to confront my issues. I didn't, and frankly, I didn't have the tools at the time. And so in that way, it served me. It served me because I did still learn and grow through those experiences, even though I was spiritual bypassing at the time. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just asked, did you do it? And you said, yes, I did. And you said you grew it through it, but it wasn't it. No, that's fine. And and that's exactly my point, that basically spiritual bypassing, as you called it, is outsourcing your inner work and thinking by doing this way of breathing, by thinking that way, doing that practice, getting up at this time in the morning or going to sleep at that time at night, it will do your work for you. And all the people, all the methods that you and I talk about, I'm familiar with. I've dived into their work. Usually I dive in before they become celebrity. And that's where I'm interested, because then it becomes a completely different presentation and I benefit from it. But I believe from my experience that none of these are the work that I need to do. These are tools of my work. These are part of my work. They're helpful at times. This book I read, that method I practice, they're all helpful, as you said. I mean, there's no danger in that. The danger is forgetting why I'm in there and how I'm going to get where I'm going to get. And my challenge with people who behave like that for a long time, we all do it and we all learn from it. But when that becomes their way of life, is that assumption that because I know it, and more importantly, because I learned the language, because they all come with the language, and I can tell who has done what. The moment a student or a client says something, I say, have you done this work? And they say, yeah, how do you know? I say, because you have the language. And that's where I see the true danger of what you call, spiritual bypassing. That because I know, I've learned, and because I'm now using the language, I think I've done the work.
Mm, mm,
And that is especially when I work in California, especially when I walk around the so-called energetic work or spiritual work. I see that far more than I see it, let's say, in the workplace when I do training and when I work with people in their workplaces. That this reliance, that emphasis that people put on, oh, I've done that. Oh, I know. This I know statement is the most dangerous statement in the inner work. That when I think I know, why? Because you fill in the number, 8 years, 8 months, 8 days, 8 hours. I took some course and I understood what they said. Then I think my work is done. All I need to do is now to use the language and advise other people to do the same. So I've seen people saying, just be positive. Just look at just be one with God, unity, love and light. If I see that under another email, with love and light, it's like, I love it. I understand it. I've literally written a book about it, but uh, how far are those words from where I am is my question always. And that's the beauty of teaching. Anything I teach or coach, advise people on, I stop because my teacher told me, and he's not famous, he told me, unless you're practicing it, not perfecting it, do not speak about it. A simple statement and guidance that truly changed my life. He said, you are not allowed to advise others or even share with others without the disclaimer unless you're practicing. And I think that's my concern about what you're speaking about, spiritual bypassing. However, you also said that it really benefited to you. So tell me more about where did it benefit? Where did it, didn't benefit you? How did you find out that this is not the way?
Everyone has different shadow aspects of themselves, and some of them are more intense and we're more disconnected from them than others. And I had a big shadow, and I was really, really scared of this part of me. And frankly, I just didn't have the tools, as I mentioned, to confront them. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't even know what to do with it. At least with the work I was doing, um, with Joe Dispenza's work, it actually opened me up to a possibility of love that I didn't know existed before. The first time I felt like I truly felt love in this lifetime was in his work. And what was happening though is now I had the contrast. Before, the experience of just constant anxiety and this perpetual sense of inadequacy. And at least during his meditations, I was experiencing something different and new. And I knew there was a different possibility now. And in the early stages, I don't think that one could avoid quote unquote spiritual bypassing. You want that thing that feels way better than the thing that has made you feel miserable your whole life, right? And then it reached a point for me where I didn't have a choice, because I I was doing his work, and as I was doing his work and I was wanting to reach those elevated states, I was rejecting those parts of me that made me feel bad even more. I was wanting to run away from it more, and it created this massive tension in me. I was split, and there had reached a point where, the rubber band. It felt like the rubber band was stretching in two different directions, and then all of a sudden, it it, it retracted, and it retracted, uh, and it gave me like a whiplash, an emotional, spiritual whiplash in a big way. And I went through this period of really intensified anxiety and insomnia. It was a very difficult time, very difficult time.
Mm.
And it was at that time where I had no choice. Life was telling me that, okay, there's some part of me that I'm not addressing. There's something that's not right. And so that's when the journey of starting to explore my shadow aspects really began. Yeah.
You called it a very big shadow. And just want to pause here and ask, can anybody really relate to that? Because you emphasize big as if like my shadow is smaller than yours. But but I really want to connect to that because I'm interested to see whoever is listening, can you relate to that? The few words that were key words you said. One was big shadow as opposed to a small one and nice ones. And also rejection. You were rejecting them. And I think that's a very much a key. Are you, whoever you are you relating to that? That instead of incorporating that unevolved part of yourself, you called it shadow. Energetically, I called it not evolved or not aware part of me into your daily life. Or are you rejecting it? Because the moment we reject, we are in the state of fear. And in the state of fear, no matter how much, topping of love we have put on it, the core of it is still fear. So I really want our listeners to be part of this conversation and see, where do you feel that you have this big shadow that you haven't really sat down with and had a cup of tea with? Where are you rejecting that part of it and you think that's like below me? I've read this and I'm there, and people tell me, Mitra, I meditate every day, I do yoga and I do this and I do that. I know all gratitude. I know all of that. And I smile and I say, sure, so does my computer, actually better than you, but it doesn't mean anything unless it's really incorporated in breath by breath, day by day, instant by instant. And again, I want to really emphasize here, because when I talk about these things, a perfect person comes to our awareness that is very aware, has worked through the shadow, and knows about these teachers and their systems, but is not attached to them, and just has it all. And I would say if that person existed, they would be very far from everyday physical life. And I know I haven't met anyone, even the most enlightened teachers. I remember that when my Buddhist teacher, and he had the highest um, title that a Buddhist teacher can have, a Vivekananda. On top of that, he had academic title. He was a doctor. He had a PhD in meditation. He was invited to go around the world and teach. So Dr. Vivekananda, who since childhood had done actually, his left his body, had done nothing but this kind of inner work. When he came to visit me and stayed with me in my home, he only ate once a day, and of course was a vegetarian. So I cooked him some delicious version of Persian rice, and he just loved it so much that every morning that he would get up and say, like, Mitra, what are you going to cook today? And then I remember a friend of mine was there. He came to the kitchen and he said, so much for non-attachment, Mitra. And I shared it with my teacher and he laughed. He said, yes, but I have physicality, which is a beautiful answer. So
Mm.
until we have physicality, we do have some limitations, and we need to even honor that and incorporate that with our journey. I understand when I feel jealous. I understand when my ego is really, really tackled. I understand it. I work with it. I never pretend it doesn't happen, but they still arise. I still find myself doing these things. Whoever I is, I the teacher, I the everyday life, I the student, when I acknowledge that and I bring, and I learned that from my teacher, bring a sense of humor to it. It's like, yeah, this came and that showed up. I've always mentioned that I have names for different aspects of me. You know, they all come and sit at the table and we have a really good lunch with each other, and then we decide how to proceed. So tell me about different aspects of you, Ben, in relationship to um, spiritual bypassing.
Those qualities that you were sharing about being more lighthearted and about being curious, and that's what I experience as when we're not, yes, when we're not spiritual bypassing. But I was thinking about me a few years ago. I honestly, if you told me that, I wouldn't know how to do that. And the reason is because this part of me that I was avoiding was like this dark, unknown spot. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was. And it was only when I started to gain some knowledge about what it is and why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing that I can approach it with more curiosity. You've a few times brought up the example of your brother who would pretend he was a ghost. You put a sheet over his head,
Yes.
and you were kids, and when he had the sheet over his head, you would feel scared because you wouldn't see him. You couldn't see him. You couldn't see what's underneath. And the moment he took off the sheet, you would go after him and
I
you'd
would
kick his
beat him
butt.
up, bite him
Yeah,
up, actually.
yeah. And for me, I really relate to that when it comes to my confronting my inner shadows, is when I started to understand what they were and where they came from, they became less scary. And when they're less scary, then I can approach it with curiosity, with a little bit more levity.
And we
Yeah.
all have them, and it's okay to have them. So that's the most important part. There is nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. I haven't gone off the path. It just means I'm human and I'm experiencing and I'm cleansing. And that's okay. I think that part we reject it when we think there is something wrong with having those things. It's never about what's there. It's about what we do with what's there, you know? So like jealousy shows up quite often for many of us. We see something we like and we think, oh, the question is, what do you do with it? Like one thing I've learned, and I think we've talked about it in one of our episodes about jealousy. What I've learned is that turn it into something good. So I say, oh, obviously I want to have this thing. That's why I feel this jealousy, and I can include them. May I have whatever it is that you have and made me jealous about you. And may you also enjoy whatever you have made grow and grow. Let's say it's, I don't know, success. Let's say it's your loving relationship with someone. So I incorporate, it's what I do with it. And then that allows me not to reject it. That allows me to see it. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That part is showing up again and I can do something good with it. And then I don't have to reject it. Rejection comes exactly what you said when I don't know what to do with it. Hence I negate it and reject it and ignore it.
Yeah. Well, what that reminds me of is just the role of guilt and shoulding. And that was one of my biggest challenges in my process was guilt. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't feel jealous. I'm bad if I feel jealous. It's a bad thing to feel jealous. I shouldn't feel scared in a social situation. I should be happy. I should be outgoing. And all of this shoulding made it so difficult for me. And, it was like autopilot for me, though. It was really hard to avoid that dialogue in me. So that's an entry point, by the way. The shoulding is nothing is bad. The moment any part of us that says I shouldn't be doing this or that, and in my journey was an opportunity to look at that very thing that's saying I shouldn't do that. What's wrong with doing that? Where's that really coming from? So rather than reacting to the I shouldn't, is just noticing when the shoulding comes up and then looking at the shoulding and having, literally like sitting at a coffee table with that part of me. I call it was at one time it was uh my inner parent, you know, and the inner critic. We talked about the inner critic in a recent episode,
Inner
but
bad
having,
parent.
yeah, and having a conversation with that part of me and getting to know that part of me. And as I shine the light on that, then that shoulding begins to gradually dissolve. That was a big challenge for me in my journey. Yeah.
I wonder if anybody can relate to what we're saying. Like, could it be psychologically? It could be spiritually that we should ourselves, as Alice calls it, um, musting or masturbation. It calls it. It's 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 just that if it comes, that means that we are really not seeing ourselves. The moment you see that, so the way you described it first was to notice it, become aware of it, and then the next what you do is you sit with it, you allow it to be there. I always say, let's have a cup of tea with it. My difficult side is showing the unevolved side, however you want to call it, depends on if you're in a more mental mode or spiritual mode, whatever you call it. That part that is not fully there for me is showing up. And I need to face it. I need to sit with it. And I need to say, hey, what kind of information you have for me? But what comes in the way of this sitting comfortably is my knowing, believe it or not. I do a 3 month course in mindful attentionism. The first session I ask the participants to do, I say, please leave everything you know at the door. And they write to me before, what should I read to prepare and how can I come with it?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, please don't prepare. and please leave everything at the door. They're not allowed to quote anything. They're not allowed to mention any teacher. Not because I'm sensitive. I always acknowledge my teachers and the things that have helped me. But it is those things that come in the way. When I quote a renowned person, I feel like I'm there. But when I am here in this moment, feeling the fact that as soon as you said this, I got provoked, or I felt this and that, and I don't like it. I don't like to feel that way. Then I can work with it. I can authentically work with it. And it is after that, then my knowledge can help me, not before that. So once I sit with it, I say, oh, yes, this teacher said that, that book said this, and this enlightened person does it this way. Then it's helpful. But before that, it, if I bring that in, it doesn't even allow me to see myself and welcome that side of myself, which is really true part of me. I'm saying this and I'm hoping that as people listen to this conversation, please practice it and tell us, does it work for you? Is that something you can relate to? Because a lot of people suffer in silence. I call it the conspiracy of isolation and silence. And then it's only in private sessions that they open up and tell me, and they gave me this insight that otherwise I don't have. I only know me. Who do I know? What do I know? What is true for you? I hardly know what's true for me, let alone know what's true for you. So just check in, like as you're listening, is this true for you? Have you had that experience that it was difficult for you to face that part of you? And instead of welcoming it, instead of, at least welcome is too strong, at least saying, hey, what do you have to tell me? Why are you here? What information, what wisdom, what news do you have for me? Instead of negating it.
Some of you might be listening and some of you might realize, oh no, maybe I'm spiritual bypassing, and you might be feeling like some fear about that or some emotions about that. That is a perfect opportunity to go into that inquiry that Mitra just proposed. Yeah, because it's all okay. It's all good. It's all an opportunity to expand, to learn, to grow. And that, Mitra, for me, one of the most powerful, I'll call it a mantra for me, was it's okay. It's okay. Whatever it is, I'm feeling jealous. It's okay. Oh, I'm noticing I'm spiritual bypassing. Oh my God. I didn't realize I was. It's okay. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay to be sad. It's okay.
And when I am perfect, I will probably be bodiless. I'll be an energetic teacher until I have this body. I have those experiences. And as you said, and that's okay. And all is well. And I am okay. As long as this journey continues and as long as I'm learning and practicing, it's all good. It's all good. We're not broken. Nothing is wrong. We're just learning and growing. And this spiritual bypassing is one of the cover ups. We have so many cover ups, and this is one of them. And it's a pity that we use our wisdom that we have learned, our teachers that have so wonderfully taught us, to cover up something even further than before. It's a waste to do that. So when I notice that, and when I notice it in myself, it's just, I just smile. I just laugh and I think, oh, okay. I see what's going on. That lightheartedness that comes with an action is extremely helpful. Not a lightheartedness, it's okay and I won't do anything about it, but it's okay and let me sit with it and see what happens
Yeah,
and what goes on after I sit with
absolutely.
it.
The curiosity is an important piece. The
Exactly.
curiosity is so critical and important, and the more curious we are, the more the fear dissolves as well. Don't take anything we're saying at face value. Try it, experience it, find out for yourself. Nothing we're saying is true for you until you get to experience it for yourself.
Great suggestion. So I think we're complete for the time being. Hope it was of service to you, and please share with us that which you think will help others to hear. Until the next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.